They say you can tell everything about a person by what they order at midnight. Mine was a large pepperoni, extra cheese, no one to share it with. His was a second chance nobody thought he deserved. I opened the door expecting some kid in a grease-stained cap. Instead, I got a white man, bald, covered in tattoos that looked like they'd been inked in another lifetime, holding my pizza like it was a treaty. His eyes were the kind that had seen too much but somehow still knew how to look without taking. "You shouldn't eat alone," he said. I should have shut the door. Should have listened to every instinct that said men like him, men with prison ink crawling up their neck, men who moved like they'd learned to survive in cages, were dangerous. But when he walked past me into my apartment, set the pizza down, and looked at me like I was the one who needed saving, I let him. That was the night I learned that the most dangerous thing wasn't the ex-convict in my kitchen. It was how badly I wanted him to stay. You will feel so many emotions in this story of second chances and forbidden love. Please support us by clicking subscribe to the channel. They say you can tell everything about a person by what they order at midnight. Mine was a large pepperoni, extra cheese, no one to share it with. His was a second chance nobody thought he deserved. I'd been staring at my phone for 20 minutes before I finally pressed order. Tuesday night, 11 p.m., the kind of silence in my apartment that felt like it had weight, like it was pressing down on my chest. I hadn't eaten since breakfast. Maybe. Or was it yesterday? Time had a way of blurring when you stopped mattering to anyone, including yourself. The knock came 30 minutes later. Sharp, definitive. Not the apologetic tap of someone who's used to people pretending not to be home. I opened the door in pajama shorts and an old Nirvana t-shirt I'd stolen from an ex-boyfriend whose name I could barely remember. I expected some teenager with acne and bored eyes, already thinking about his next delivery. Instead, I got Marcus. That's not what he said his name was. Not right away. But that's who he was. A white man, maybe mid-30s, completely bald, his head catching the hallway light like polished stone. And the tattoos. God, the tattoos. They crawled up his neck, disappeared under the collar of his delivery uniform, wrapped around his forearms in black and gray ink that looked like it had been etched in a place where beauty came second to survival. A phoenix on his neck, thorns around his wrist, names I couldn't read in Gothic script. His eyes, though, his eyes didn't match the ink. They were careful, watchful, the kind of eyes that had learned to see everything, because missing something once had cost him more than I could imagine. He held my pizza box like it was a peace offering. "Your order," he said. His voice was rough, like gravel under tires, but there was something gentle in how he said it. I reached for the box. He didn't let go right away. "You eating alone?" he asked. I blinked. "Excuse me?" He nodded past me, into my apartment. The single lamp I'd left on, the empty couch, the TV playing something I wasn't watching. "You're eating alone," he said. Not a question, a statement. That's not safe. I almost laughed. Almost. Safe from what? Pepperoni? He didn't smile. From whatever's got you ordering food this late and looking like you haven't slept in a week. The air between us changed. Got heavier. I should have been insulted. Should have told him to mind his own business and slammed the door. But something in his face stopped me. He wasn't judging me. He was recognizing me. Like he'd seen this version of a person before and knew exactly where it led. "I'm fine," I said. "No, you're not." 2 words. Just 2 words. And I felt my throat tighten. He stepped past me. Just walked right into my apartment like he'd been invited. Like he had every right. Set the pizza box on my kitchen counter. Pulled out one of my mismatched chairs and sat down. His hands, scarred and thick-knuckled, rested on my table like they belonged there. I stood in my own doorway, frozen. "I'm not leaving until you eat," he said calmly. He opened the pizza box. The smell of grease and cheese filled my tiny kitchen. "When's the last time you had a real meal?" I couldn't remember, couldn't think. Could only stare at this stranger who just invaded my space and somehow made it feel less empty. "What's your name?" I whispered. "Marcus." He pulled a slice free, set it on a napkin, pushed it toward the chair across from him. "Yours is Jenna. Says so on the receipt." He'd read my name, remembered it, bothered to use it. I sat down. Didn't know why. Didn't question it. Just sat across from this bald, tattooed man with careful eyes and ate pizza while he watched me. Not creepy watching. Protective watching. Like he was making sure I actually did it. We didn't talk. Just existed in the same space. His presence was solid. Real. The first real thing I'd felt in months. When I finished the slice, he nodded. Good, he said. Now another one. Why are you doing this? I asked. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he leaned back in my chair, and I saw something in his face that looked like old pain worn smooth. Because I know what it looks like when someone's about to disappear, he said. His eyes held mine. And I'm not letting that happen. Not on my watch. After that night, Marcus didn't disappear. He just showed up. Everywhere. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Thought maybe I was so starved for human connection that my brain had conjured him. But no, he was real. Solid. Undeniable. The first time I saw him after the pizza delivery, I was waiting for the bus at 6 a.m. The sky was still that bruised purple before dawn, and I was the only person at the stop on 5th and Madison, cold enough that I could see my breath. I stood there with my arms wrapped around myself, half asleep, when I felt it. That prickle on the back of your neck when someone's watching. I turned. He was across the street, leaning against a lamppost, hands in his jacket pockets, just standing there. When our eyes met, he nodded once, didn't smile, didn't wave, just acknowledged me like we'd made some kind of unspoken agreement. The bus came. I got on. When I looked back through the window, he was still there, watching until we pulled away. It happened again 2 days later. Outside the diner where I worked doubles on Thursdays and Fridays. I was taking out the trash around 9 p. That dead hour between dinner rush and the late-night drunks, when I saw him, sitting in a car parked across the street. An old Honda with a dent in the passenger door. He wasn't hiding, wasn't pretending, just sitting there like a sentinel. My hands shook as I threw the trash bag into the dumpster. I should have been terrified. Should have called the police. Should have done literally anything except what I did, which was walk across the street and tap on his window. He rolled it down. Are you following me? I asked. Yes, he said, no hesitation, no lie. Why? He looked at me with those careful eyes. Because you take the bus alone before sunrise. Because you work until midnight and walk home through neighborhoods that aren't safe. Because you need someone watching your back and you don't have anyone. You don't know that. Don't I? I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because he was right. Go back inside, Aunt Jenna, he said quietly. Finish your shift. I'll make sure you get home safe. And he did. When I left the diner at 11:45, he was still there. Followed my bus at a distance. I watched his headlights trail behind us for 6 stops. When I got off, he drove past slowly, made sure I got into my building, then disappeared into the night. It became routine. A strange, unspoken routine. He'd appear at the bus stop, outside the diner, walking past my building when I got home. He never approached me at first, never asked for anything, just existed in my peripheral vision like a shadow with good intentions. Diane noticed. My co-worker, 40-something with bleached hair and opinions about everything. Who's the bald guy with all the ink? She asked one night, refilling salt shakers. Nobody, I said. Nobody doesn't sit in his car for 4 hours watching you work. I didn't have an answer for that. But Marcus did things. Small things I didn't ask for. Fixed the broken lock on my mailbox that had been hanging loose for 3 months. I came home one day, and it was just fixed. Solid. Secure. Carried my grocery bags up 4 flights of stairs when he saw me struggling. Didn't say a word. Just took them from my hands and climbed ahead of me like it was the most natural thing in the world. The night everything changed was a Friday. I was closing the diner alone because Diane had called in sick. It was past midnight when I finally locked up. The street was empty except for one person. Not Marcus. Derek. My ex. My mistake. My 3-month lesson in why you should trust your instincts when a man shows you who he is the first time. He was drunk. I could tell from 20 feet away by the way he swayed, by the aggressive set of his shoulders. Jenna, he called out, too loud for the empty street. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about, Derek. I kept walking toward the bus stop, keys wedged between my fingers like they'd taught us in that self-defense seminar I took once. You owe me money, he said, following. That 200 you borrowed? I gave it back. In cash. You counted it. That's not how I remember it. He grabbed my arm, spun me around. His breath was whiskey and rage, and I felt fear spike through me, cold and sharp. Let go, I said. Or what? Or I break your hand. The voice came from behind Derek. Low. Calm. Absolutely certain. Marcus. I don't know where he came from. Don't know how long he'd been there. But suddenly he was just there, standing close enough that Derek had to look up to see his face. Marcus had 3 inches on him. Easy, maybe 40 pounds. All of it muscle and controlled violence. Derek let go of my arm, took a step back. Who the hell are you? Derek tried to sound tough. Failed. Marcus didn't answer, just looked at him. That was all. Just looked with those eyes that had seen the inside of places Derek couldn't imagine, and something in that look made Derek's swagger crumble. Stay away from her, Marcus said quietly. Won't ask twice. Derek stumbled backward, tried to say something, gave up, turned and walked away quickly, almost running by the time he hit the corner. I stood there shaking, not from fear anymore, from relief, from gratitude, from the overwhelming realization that this stranger had just protected me from something I couldn't protect myself from. Thank you, I whispered. Marcus turned to me. His jaw was tight. You shouldn't have to deal with men like that. I know. Does he come around a lot? I shrugged. Tried to play it off. Sometimes. Jenna? His voice was firm. Does he come around a lot? Yes, I admitted. Something dark flickered across Marcus's face. Something that should have scared me but didn't. Not anymore, he said. The next morning, Diane pulled me aside before my shift started. Her face was pale, tight with concern. Jenna, she said, gripping my arm. That guy who's been following you around? I asked my cousin. She works at the courthouse. My stomach dropped. He just got out. 3 months ago. 9 years, Jenna. 9 years in prison. She looked at me like I was standing on train tracks. You need to stay away from him. You have no idea what kind of man he really is. But standing there, remembering how Marcus had stood between me and Derek, remembering the careful way he'd made sure I ate, the quiet protection he'd offered without asking for anything in return, I realized something that should have terrified me. I didn't want to stay away. I wanted to know exactly what kind of man he was. I couldn't breathe properly for the rest of my shift. Diane's words kept circling in my head like vultures. 9 years, 9 years. What do you do to get 9 years? I burned an order of eggs, spilled coffee on my apron, gave the wrong check to table 6. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. When I got off at 3 p.m., Marcus was there. Of course he was. Leaning against that same Honda, arms crossed over his chest, watching the diner entrance like he'd been carved from stone and placed there specifically to guard it. I walked straight to him. Didn't hesitate. Didn't plan what I was going to say. How long were you in prison? I asked. He didn't flinch, didn't look away, didn't insult me by pretending not to understand. 9 years, he said. Got out 3 months ago. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. What did you do? The question hung between us like smoke. A couple walked past on the sidewalk, gave Marcus a wide berth without even realizing they were doing it. That's what his presence did. Made people's survival instincts kick in automatically. Armed robbery, he said finally. His voice was steady, factual, like he was reading from a police report. I was 22. Desperate. Stupid. Pointed a gun at a convenience store clerk for $300. I felt something cold slide down my spine. Did you? I couldn't finish the question. No, no one got hurt. But that doesn't matter, does it? I pointed a loaded weapon at a terrified kid making minimum wage. Traumatized him, took something from him he'll never get back. He paused. I did the time, all of it, every single day. I should have run. Every reasonable, self-preserving instinct I had was screaming at me to walk away. This man had committed armed robbery, had spent 9 years in prison, was covered in ink that probably told stories I didn't want to know. But I couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd fixed my mailbox, the way he'd made sure I ate, the way he'd stood between me and Derek without hesitation, without asking for thanks, without demanding anything in return. Why are you following me? I whispered. He was quiet for a long moment, looked away for the first time since I'd started talking, stared at something in the distance I couldn't see. Because I saw myself in you, he said finally. That look. Like you're barely holding on. Like one more thing might break you completely. His eyes came back to mine. I've been there. In that place where you stop mattering to yourself. And I swore when I got out, if I ever saw someone drowning and I could help, I would, even if they never thanked me, even if they told me to leave. Marcus, I'm not asking you to trust me, he interrupted. I'm not asking you for anything. I know what I am. I know what people see when they look at me. He gestured to himself, to the tattoos, to the prison-hard body, to everything that marked him as dangerous. But I also know that Derek's not going to stop. Men like him never do. And you don't have anyone else? He was right. God, he was right. And that hurt worse than anything. I need to go, I said. Not because I wanted to, because I didn't know what else to do with the chaos in my chest. Okay? He stepped back immediately. Gave me space. I understand if you don't want to see me anymore. I'll stay away. He stopped. Started again. Just be careful. Please. He turned to leave Chi, and I watched him walk toward his car, and something in me cracked open. Marcus, wait. He stopped. Didn't turn around. Derek's getting worse, I said. The words came out in a rush. He's been texting me, showing up at my apartment. He says I owe him money I don't owe him. Says he's going to make me pay one way or another. I tried to report it, but the police said there's nothing they can do without proof of a direct threat. Marcus turned around slowly. His face had changed, gone cold and focused in a way that should have scared me. How long has this been going on? 2 months? Maybe 3? Why didn't you tell me? Because I don't know you, I said, and my voice broke. I don't know who you are or why you care or what you want from me. Everyone wants something. Marcus. Everyone. He walked back to me. Stopped close enough that I could see the phoenix on his neck in detail. The way the flames curled up toward his jaw. The way the bird's eyes looked almost alive. I don't want anything from you, Jenna, he said quietly. I just want you to be safe. That's it. That's all. Why? Because someone should have cared enough to keep me safe when I was 22 and desperate, he said. Maybe if they had, I wouldn't have spent 9 years in a cage learning how to survive instead of how to live. I felt tears burning behind my eyes. I can't handle Derek on my own. You don't have to. He reached out slowly, gave me time to pull away. When I didn't, his hand touched my shoulder. Just rested there. Warm and solid and real. Let me help you. Please. Let me do this one thing right. I should have said no. Should have protected myself. Should have listened to Diane and every true crime podcast I'd ever heard about women who trusted the wrong man. But when I looked into Marcus's eyes, I didn't see a criminal. I saw someone who'd made a terrible mistake and paid for it. Someone who was trying desperately to be better than his worst moment. Okay, I whispered. Something in his expression softened. Relief, maybe. Or gratitude. Thank you, he said. We stood there in the parking lot, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. That night, Derek sent me 17 texts, each one angrier than the last. Each one a little more specific about what he was going to do if I didn't give him what he wanted. I screenshotted all of them, sent them to Marcus. His response came 2 minutes later. I'm handling it. Stay inside. Lock your doors. I'll call you when it's done. I didn't ask what handling it meant. Didn't want to know. Just locked my doors like he said and waited. He called at 11 p.m. It's done. Derek won't bother you anymore. What did you do? Nothing that'll send me back. His voice was careful. I just made sure he understood that you're not alone. That if he comes near you again, he'll have to answer to someone who's not afraid of him. Marcus? Get some sleep, Jenna. You're safe. I promise. He hung up before I could respond. I should have felt relieved. Should have felt safe. And I did. But I also felt something else. Something that tasted like fear and gratitude, and the uncomfortable realization that I was starting to depend on a man I barely knew. The next morning, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole, and my blood turned to ice. A woman in a gray suit. Professional, official, Behind her, I could see a police car parked on the street. I opened the door on shaking legs. "Jenna Collins?" the woman asked. "Yes." She held up a badge. "Parole officer. I'm Officer Sarah Martinez. I need to ask you some questions about Marcus Turner. Specifically, I need to know if you were with him last night between 8 and 11 p.m. My mouth went dry. "Why?" I managed. "Because we received a complaint that Mr. Turner assaulted someone last night. A Derek Paulson. And if Mr. Turner violated the terms of his parole by engaging in violence, he goes back to prison." Her eyes were sharp, searching. "So I'll ask you again. Were you with Marcus Turner last night?" I lied to a parole officer, looked her right in the eyes and lied. "Yes," I said. "Marcus was with me, all night. We ordered takeout and watched movies. He never left my apartment." Officer Martinez studied me like she was trying to read a language I didn't know I was speaking. "What time did he arrive?" 7:30, maybe 8, and he stayed until this morning. He's still here, actually." I gestured vaguely toward my apartment, praying she wouldn't ask to see him, wouldn't call my bluff. She wrote something in a small notebook. "Ms. Collins, providing a false alibi for a parolee is a crime. If I find out you're lying to protect Mr. Turner—" "I'm not lying," I said, and I was surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "He was with me." She didn't believe me. I could see it in the way her jaw tightened, but she couldn't prove otherwise. "Not without evidence. Not without witnesses. If that changes," she said, handing me a business card, "call me immediately." She left. I closed the door and slid down against it, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. My phone rang 10 minutes later. "Marcus, did a parole officer come to see you?" His voice was tight. "Yes." "What did you tell her?" "That you were with me all night." Silence. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. "Jenna," he said finally, and his voice sounded broken. "You can't lie for me. You could get in trouble. If they find out, then they find out." I snapped. "You protected me. I'm protecting you. That's how this works. That's not how this works. You don't understand what you've done. If she investigates, if she finds proof, she won't. You don't know that." He was breathing hard. I could hear traffic in the background. "I'm not worth this. I'm not worth you risking anything." "Don't tell me what you're worth," I said. "You don't get to decide that." Another long silence. "I need to see you," he said quietly. "Can I come over?" "Yes." He was at my door in 15 minutes. When I opened it, he looked wrecked. His eyes were shadowed, his jaw tight. He walked in and just stood there in my living room like he didn't know what to do with his hands. "You shouldn't have lied for me," he said. Too late. "Jenna, did you assault Derek?" I asked. He looked at me. "No, I found him at a bar. Sat down next to him. Told him that if he contacted you again, texted you, called you, came within 100 feet of you, I'd make sure everyone he knows found out exactly how pathetic he is. That I'd follow him the way he followed you. That I'd make his life so uncomfortable he'd wish he'd never heard your name. That's it. That's it. I never touched him." He paused. "But I made sure he believed I would. Then why did he file a complaint?" "Because men like Derek are cowards," Marcus said. "When they can't intimidate you themselves, they use the system." He knew exactly what a parole violation would mean for me. He was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gotten involved. I should have—" "Stop," I said. "Just stop apologizing for being a decent person." He looked at me like I'd said something in a foreign language. "You think I'm decent? I think you're trying to be. And that's more than most people do." Something in his face changed, softened. He sat down on my couch, and I saw how tired he was, how much weight he was carrying. I sat next to him, not touching, but close enough that I could feel his warmth. "Tell me about it," I said quietly. "Prison. What it was like." "You don't want to know?" "Yes, I do." He was quiet for a long time. Then he started talking. He told me about the cell he'd lived in for 9 years. 6 by 8 feet. A toilet and a sink and a metal bed. He told me about learning to sleep light, about keeping his back to the wall, about reading people's intentions in the set of their shoulders, or the way they breathed. About books being the only escape. About teaching himself to cook with nothing but a hot plate and commissary food, because it gave him something to focus on besides the years stretching ahead of him. He told me about the tattoos. The phoenix on his neck he'd gotten the day before his release. Corny, right? He said with a half-smile that didn't reach his eyes. Ex-con gets a phoenix tattoo. No, I whispered. It's perfect. He told me about his parole officer, the weekly meetings, the drug tests, the restrictions, about his job at a construction site where he woke up at 4 a.m. every day and worked until his body gave out because staying busy was the only way to avoid thinking about how much he'd lost. About his studio apartment with a mattress on the floor, and 3 books, and nothing else, because he was terrified of wanting things, of building a life that could be taken away again. I've got one shot, he said. One shot to prove I'm not who I was. If I screw up, if I violate parole, I go back. And I can't. He stopped. I can't go back, Jenna. I'll die before I go back. I reached out, took his hand. His fingers were rough with calluses, scarred across the knuckles, but they were warm, real. You're not going back, I said. You don't know that? Yes, I do. Because I'll make sure you don't. He looked at our hands, at my small fingers wrapped around his damaged ones, and I saw his throat work as he swallowed. Why are you doing this? He asked. Why do you care? Because when I looked at him, I didn't see a criminal. I saw someone who'd survived something that should have destroyed him. Someone who'd come out the other side still trying to be good. Because everyone deserves someone who believes in them, I said. And I believe in you. His eyes met mine, and I saw something in them I hadn't seen before. Vulnerability. Hope. The terrifying possibility that maybe he could have something good. I don't deserve you, he said quietly. Probably not, I agreed. But you're stuck with me anyway. He smiled then, a real smile, small and broken and beautiful. We sat there on my couch, hands linked, and I felt something shift in my chest, something that felt dangerous and inevitable, and like the best decision I'd ever made. The next week passed quietly. Marcus walked me to work, sat in the diner during my shifts, nursing coffee and doing crossword puzzles in a battered book. Walked me home. We talked about small things, his favorite books, my abandoned dreams of nursing school, the weather, his parole officer's obsession with punctuality. We didn't talk about Derek, didn't talk about the lie I'd told, just existed together in a strange, careful peace. People at work noticed. Diane kept giving me concerned looks. My manager asked if everything was okay. I told them I was fine, better than fine, and I was. For the first time in months, I felt like I mattered to someone, like I was seen. On Friday night, after my shift ended, Marcus walked me to my building. We stood outside in the cold, breath fogging between us. Thank you, I said, for everything. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. He reached out, hesitated, then tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered on my cheek for just a moment, warm despite the cold. Good night, Jenna, he said. Good night, Marcus. I watched him walk to his car, and I was smiling when I turned toward my building. That's when I saw the man standing in the shadows near the entrance. Tall, built like Marcus, covered in similar ink, watching me with eyes that had seen the same darkness. You must be Jenna, the man said, stepping into the light. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Marcus talks about you. My blood went cold. Who are you? Name's Cody. He moved closer, and I instinctively stepped back. Marcus and I go way back. Cellmates for 5 years. Been looking for him, actually. He gestured toward Marcus's car. Think you could tell him I need to have a word. About old debts. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Fast. Running. Marcus appeared next to me, and his whole body had changed. Gone tense and dangerous. A different person than the man who just tucked my hair back. Cody, he said. His voice was ice. Leave. Cody smiled wider. That's not very friendly, brother. Not after everything we've been through together. I said leave. We need to talk, Marcus. You and me. About loyalty. About family. His eyes flicked to me. About choices. Marcus moved in front of me. A wall between me and whatever Cody represented. You have 10 seconds to walk away, Marcus said quietly. Or I call my parole officer myself and tell her exactly what you're doing here, how you found me, how you're violating your own parole by making contact. Cody's smile faded. Something hard flickered across his face. "You've changed, brother," he said. "Yes, I have. That's too bad." He started backing away. "Because the people we owe? They haven't changed, and they're going to collect, one way or another." He disappeared into the darkness, and I stood there shaking. Marcus turned to me. His face was pale, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. "Go inside," he said. "Lock your doors. Don't answer if anyone knocks." "Marcus, please, Jenna, just do it." I went inside, locked the doors like he said, pressed my back against them, and listened to my heartbeat thunder in my ears. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Stay away from Marcus Turner," a voice said. "Male, rough, not Cody's. Or what happened to Derek will look like mercy." The line went dead. I didn't sleep that night, just sat on my couch with every light on, phone in my hand, jumping at every sound in the hallway. At 3 a.m., I finally texted Marcus, "Are you okay?" The response came immediately, like he'd been awake too. "Yes. Are you?" "No. I'm coming over." "Marcus, it's 3 in the morning. I don't care." He was at my door 15 minutes later. I opened it, and he looked like hell. Dark circles under his eyes, his jaw still tight with whatever he'd been carrying since Cody appeared. He walked in, and I closed the door behind him. "Someone called me," I said. "Told me to stay away from you. Said what happened to Derek would look like mercy." His hands curled into fists. "God damn it." "Who was that? Who's Cody?" Marcus sat down heavily on my couch, rubbed his face with both hands. When he looked up at me, I saw something in his eyes that looked like resignation. "Cody and I were cellmates for 5 years," he said. "He kept me alive in there, taught me how to survive, how to read people, how to make sure I didn't become someone's target." He paused. "I owe him. In prison, that means something. What does he want? A favor. Someone on the outside disrespected the wrong people. Cody wants me to send a message." My stomach dropped. What kind of message? The kind that could send me back to prison for the rest of my life. The air in my apartment felt too thin. "You're not going to do it," I said. Not a question, a demand. "No, I'm not that person anymore." He looked at me. "But Cody doesn't care who I am now. He only cares about who I was. And in his world, debts get paid. One way or another. What happens if you say no?" I already said no. "That's why someone called you." He stood up, started pacing. "They're going to pressure me. Use you to get to me. Make me think that if I don't help them, they'll hurt you." "Will they?" He stopped pacing, looked at me with an expression that made my chest ache. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I don't know what they're capable of anymore. I've been out 3 months. They've been building something while I was locked up. I'm not part of that world anymore, but they think I am. They think I'm still one of them. Are you?" "No." His voice was sharp. Definite. "I'm not. I'll never be that person again. I'd rather die than go back to that." I believed him. God help me, I believed him. "Then we go to the police," I said. "And tell them what? That my former cellmate threatened me. They'll violate my parole just for being in contact with him. I'll go back, Jenna, automatically." "That's not fair." He laughed, bitter and tired. "Fair doesn't exist for people like me. I made my choices. This is the cost." I wanted to argue, wanted to rage against a system that punished someone for trying to rebuild. But I could see the defeat in his shoulders, the weight of carrying a past that wouldn't let him go. "I should leave," he said quietly. "Should get out of your life before this gets worse. You don't deserve to be dragged into my mess." "Don't," I said. "Jenna, I mean it. Don't you dare walk away because you think you're protecting me." I moved closer to him. "I'm not some fragile thing that needs to be shielded. I'm choosing to be here. I'm choosing you." "You don't know what you're choosing." "Then tell me. Tell me everything." So he did. He told me about the robbery that sent him away. How he'd been 22, homeless, desperate. How he'd fallen in with people who promised him money, brotherhood, a way out. How the gun had been empty, just for show, but that didn't matter to the judge, didn't matter to the clerk who'd had nightmares for years afterward. He told me about prison, Not the sanitized version from before, but the real version. The violence, the gangs, the way you had to choose sides or die alone. How Cody had taken him under his wing, protected him, taught him to be hard because soft meant dead. He told me about the debt he owed. Not money, loyalty, blood, the kind of debt that doesn't have an expiration date. They want me to hurt someone, he said, someone who stole from them. Beat him until he tells them where the money is, and if I don't, they'll assume I've gone soft, that I'm weak, that I'm a liability. And the person they called to threaten? I asked. Who was that? Probably someone Cody knows on the outside. Someone who owes him a favor. The calls will keep coming. The pressure will increase. They'll follow you. Photograph you. Make sure I know that you're vulnerable. I should have been terrified. Should have told him to leave and never come back. Instead, I asked, what do we do? We? He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Yes, we. You think I'm letting you handle this alone? Jenna, this isn't your fight. It is now. We stared at each other across my small living room, and I saw the moment he realized I meant it. That I wasn't running, that I was choosing to stand beside him even when it was stupid, even when it was dangerous. You're insane, he said. Probably. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled me against his chest, held on like I was the only thing keeping him anchored to earth. I felt his heart hammering against my cheek, felt the tension in every muscle. I can't lose you, he whispered into my hair. You're the only good thing I've had in 9 years. You're not going to lose me. You don't know that? Yes, I do. The next week was tense. Marcus stayed close, barely left my side. Cody didn't show up again, but the calls did. Different numbers, different voices, all saying the same thing. Marcus needed to pay his debt, or people he cared about would suffer. Derek escalated too. Started showing up at the diner again, drunk and angry, screaming about how I'd set my criminal boyfriend on him, how he was going to sue, how he was going to make sure Marcus went back to prison where he belonged. Diane pulled me aside after Derek's 3rd appearance in 2 days. You need to end this, she said. Whatever you have with that man, it's not worth it. Look at what it's doing to your life. My life was falling apart before Marcus showed up, I said. He didn't break me. He's trying to keep me from breaking. He's an ex-con, Jenna. Wake up. He made a mistake when he was barely older than a kid. Paid for it. Came out trying to be better. Why doesn't that matter? She didn't have an answer. But the pressure kept building. My landlord got an anonymous call saying I was harboring a criminal. My boss pulled me aside, asked if I was in trouble, if I needed help. My sister called, crying, begging me to leave. That man, before he ruined my life. I stood at a crossroads. I could walk away, save my reputation, keep my job, maintain my relationships, live a quiet, safe life where no one whispered about me. Or I could stay. Could choose Marcus knowing it meant everyone would judge me. Knowing his past would become part of my story. Knowing I'd be tied to a man society said I should fear. I thought about the way Marcus looked at me. Like I was worth protecting. Like I mattered. Like he'd walk through fire if it meant keeping me safe. I made my choice. I posted a photo on social media, just the 2 of us, sitting on my couch, his arm around my shoulders, my head on his chest, both of us smiling like we had a secret the rest of the world would never understand. The caption, not everyone's past defines their future. Some people just need someone to believe in them. The backlash was immediate. Friends unfriended me. Family members called, angry and concerned. People I barely knew sent messages telling me I was making a mistake, that I was naive, that I'd regret this. I didn't care. Marcus saw the post an hour after I made it, showed up at my door with his phone in his hand and his eyes wet. Why would you do this? He asked. You just painted a target on yourself. Because I'm tired of you fighting alone, I said. Because you deserve someone who's not ashamed to stand next to you. Because this is my choice. And I'm making it. He pulled me into his arms, and I felt him shaking. You don't know what you've done, he whispered against my hair. I do. I chose you. The person you are now. Not the person you were. Jenna. No more apologizing. No more trying to push me away for my own good. We're in this together now. He kissed the top of my head, and I felt his tears on my scalp. For 3 days, it was quiet. No calls, no threats, no Cody. I started to think maybe it was over. Maybe they'd moved on. Then Marcus didn't show up at the diner for my evening shift. I texted him, called him, got no answer. At 10 p.m., Officer Martinez walked into the diner. 2 police officers behind her. My heart stopped. "Jenna Collins," she said, her voice professionally neutral. "Marcus Turner was arrested 2 hours ago for violating his parole. He was found in the company of Cody Williams, a known associate from his time in prison. As his parole officer, I'm required to investigate any associations with former criminals." "He didn't seek out Cody," I said, my voice shaking. "Cody came to him. He's been harassing us." "That's not what witnesses say." She pulled out a tablet, showed me a photo. Marcus and Cody standing outside a warehouse, talking. The timestamp was from that afternoon. "Mr. Turner met with Mr. Williams voluntarily. That's a direct violation of his parole terms." "That's not true. He wouldn't." "Ms. Collins." Her eyes were hard. "Marcus Turner is going back to prison pending a hearing. That hearing is in 72 hours. And what we determine depends heavily on witness testimony." She paused. "I need you to come to the station tomorrow morning to give a statement. What you say will determine whether Marcus spends the next 10 years behind bars." She handed me a card with an address and a time. 9 a.m. Don't be late. They left, and I stood in the middle of the diner with my world collapsing around me. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is what happens when people don't pay their debts. If you want Marcus to have any kind of future, you'll convince him to reconsider. Otherwise, we'll make sure he never sees freedom again. You have 72 hours. I didn't go home that night. Couldn't face my empty apartment knowing Marcus was in a cell somewhere. Knowing my statement tomorrow could either save him or condemn him. I just walked through the city until my feet ached and the sun started rising. Ended up at a 24-hour diner 3 neighborhoods over, drinking coffee that tasted like battery acid and trying to figure out what truth even meant anymore. The problem was simple. I could tell Officer Martinez that Marcus had been set up, that Cody was manipulating the situation, that Marcus was trying to stay clean, but I had no proof, just my word. And my word had already been compromised when I lied about the Derek incident. Or I could tell the truth as I knew it, that Marcus had met with Cody, that there were witnesses, that technically he had violated his parole. Either way, Marcus went back to prison. Either way, I lost him. Unless... My phone was in my hand before I fully processed what I was doing. I pulled up the messages from the unknown numbers, the threats, the pressure. Screenshot after screenshot of evidence that Marcus was being coerced. It wasn't much, but it was something. At 8:45 a.m., I walked into the police station. Officer Martinez was waiting, clipboard in hand, expression unreadable. "Mrs. Collins," she said. "Thank you for coming. Let's talk in here." She led me to a small interview room. Gray walls, metal table, 2 chairs, the kind of room designed to make you feel guilty even if you weren't. I sat down, placed my phone on the table between us. "Before we start," I said, "I need you to see something." I showed her everything, every threatening text, every call log from unknown numbers, the timeline of Cody's appearance, Derek's escalation, the anonymous call to my landlord. I explained how Marcus had been trying to stay away from his past, how he'd been building a new life, how people from prison were trying to drag him back. Martinez listened, took notes. Her expression never changed. "This is compelling," she said finally. "But it doesn't change the fact that Marcus met with a known associate. The parole violation stands." "He was trying to protect me," I said. "Cody threatened me. Marcus went to tell him to back off. That's not association. That's defense. The law doesn't make that distinction. Then the law is wrong." She looked at me for a long moment. "Ms. Collins, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen hundreds of parolees. Most of them reoffend. Most of them can't break the cycle. They go back to what they know because it's easier than building something new. Marcus isn't most people. How do you know?" "Because I've watched him," I said. "I've seen how hard he works, how carefully he lives, how terrified he is of screwing up. He wakes up at 4 a.m. to work construction. He reads books about redemption. He goes to every parole meeting early. He doesn't drink, doesn't touch drugs, doesn't associate with anyone from his past except when they force their way into his life. And yet here we are. Yes, here we are. Because people like Cody won't let him go. Because the system makes it almost impossible for someone to actually change. Because everyone expects him to fail. So they create situations where failure is inevitable. My voice was shaking. I couldn't stop it. Do you know what Marcus told me? I asked. He said he'd rather die than go back. That prison didn't rehabilitate him. It broke him. And the only thing that's kept him going is the belief that maybe, just maybe, he could have a life worth living. She didn't respond. If you send him back, you're not protecting society. You're destroying the one person who actually did the work. Who actually changed. Martinez set down her pen. I believe you care about him. I believe he's been trying. But my job isn't to evaluate effort. It's to enforce the terms of parole. And Marcus violated those terms because he was protecting me. That's not my determination to make. She stood up. The hearing is tomorrow at 2 p.m. A judge will review the evidence and make a final decision. What you've shown me will be included in the report. Can I see him? I asked. Marcus, can I talk to him? She hesitated. You're not family. Please. Something in my voice must have reached her. She sighed. 15 minutes. That's all I can give you. They brought Marcus into a visiting room. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit. Handcuffs. The same outfit he'd probably worn every day for 9 years. The sight of it made my stomach turn. He sat down across from me, separated by plexiglass. Picked up the phone. I picked up mine. You shouldn't be here, he said. His voice was flat. Defeated. Where else would I be? Home, safe, away from this. Marcus, they're going to send me back, Jenna. He looked at me with eyes that had already accepted his fate. The hearing is a formality. I associated with a former inmate. That's automatic revocation. I showed Martinez the threats, the texts, everything. It won't matter. It has to matter. He shook his head slowly. The system doesn't care about context, doesn't care about intent. I made a choice to meet with Cody. That's all they need to know. You were trying to protect me. Doesn't change the outcome. He leaned forward, pressed his palm against the glass. I need you to do something for me. Anything. Walk away. After tomorrow, after they send me back, I need you to forget about me. Build your life. Find someone who doesn't come with all this baggage. Be happy. No, Jenna. I said no. My voice was sharp. You don't get to make that decision for me. I'm trying to protect you. By abandoning me. By deciding I'm not strong enough to handle this. By keeping you from wasting your life on someone who can't give you a future. I felt tears burning. But I refused to let them fall. You are my future. Don't you get that? You're the first person in years who made me feel like I mattered, who saw me, who gave a damn whether I ate or slept or made it home safe. You matter to a lot of people. Name one. He couldn't. I love you, I said. The words came out before I could stop them. I love you, Marcus. And I'm not walking away. Not now. Not ever. His face crumpled. He closed his eyes, pressed his forehead against the glass. God, Jenna, don't say that. It's true. You can't love someone like me. Too late. We sat there, separated by plexiglass and a system that refused to believe in second chances. And I watched him cry silently on the other side. Time's up, a guard said behind him. Marcus looked at me one last time. I'm sorry, he said. For all of it. Don't be sorry, I said. Just don't give up. They took him away. I sat in that empty visiting room and let myself break down. Let the tears come. Let the grief wash over me. Then I dried my eyes and walked out into the parking lot. I had 24 hours to save him. 24 hours to find something, anything, that would convince a judge that Marcus deserved his freedom. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Touching visit, a voice said. Cody. Real romantic. Too bad it's not going to change anything. What do you want? I want Marcus to understand that loyalty matters, that you don't walk away from family just because you put on a suit and pretend you're clean. He's not your family. He was for 5 years. That counts for something. Cody paused. But I'm a reasonable man. I'll make you a deal. I'm listening. Marcus does one job for us, just one, uses those skills he learned inside, sends our message, and we make this whole parole violation disappear. We've got friends in the system. We can bury this. In exchange for what? For Marcus going back to who he really is? One job? Then he's free? We leave him alone? We leave you alone? Everyone gets what they want? Except Marcus becomes a criminal again. He never stopped being one, sweetheart. He's just been pretending. Cody's voice was smooth, persuasive. One job, clean record, fresh start. That's more than most people get. And if I say no, then Marcus goes back to prison, does another 10 years minimum, and when he gets out, he'll be 45 years old with nothing. No prospects, no hope, no you because you'll have moved on. That's assuming he survives another decade inside. Statistics aren't great for repeat offenders. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. You have until tomorrow's hearing to decide, Cody said. Talk to Marcus. Convince him to take the deal, or watch him disappear for the rest of his life. Your choice, Jenna. Make the right one. He hung up. I stood in that parking lot and I realized something that made my blood run cold. I was willing to do it. Willing to tell Marcus to take the deal. Willing to let him break the law one more time if it meant he stayed free. If it meant I didn't lose him. The thought terrified me more than anything else. Because somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being the girl who needed saving. I'd become someone willing to burn the world down to protect the person she loved. And I had no idea if that made me brave or broken. I didn't sleep. Instead, I investigated. First stop, the convenience store Marcus had robbed 9 years ago. The clerk was there, older now, tired eyes behind reading glasses. I'm here about Marcus Turner, I said. His expression changed. He reached under the counter and pulled out a box of letters. He wrote me for 6 years. The clerk said quietly. Apologized. Never asked for anything. Then 4 months ago, he showed up and gave me $5,000. Every penny he'd saved in prison. Said it was for the trauma he'd caused. Would you testify to that? At his hearing, he nodded. Give me the details. I'll be there. I gathered more witnesses. Marcus's foreman, who called him the best worker he'd ever hired. I found evidence that Cody had violated his own parole 6 times without consequences. Proof of corruption, of a system protecting criminals with connections while crushing those trying to change. The hearing came. I presented everything. The threatening texts, the timeline, the witnesses. The clerk testified about the letters, the apology, the restitution. This is a man who's done everything possible to make amends. If we send him back, we're saying redemption is impossible. Then Derek appeared, sober, nervous. I lied about the assault complaint, he admitted. Marcus never touched me. I filed it because I was angry, because I wanted to hurt him for protecting Jenna. He looked at me. I'm tired of being the villain in my own story. The judge reviewed everything silently. Mr. Turner, she said finally, while you technically violated parole, you acted to protect someone from harassment. Your parole is reinstated. Your violation is expunged. And I'm recommending you for early release from supervision based on exceptional rehabilitation. Marcus stood there, frozen. Thank you, Your Honor. When he walked out, free, he pulled me against his chest. You saved me, he whispered. No, I said. You saved yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it. I love you, Jenna. I love you too. We stood on those courthouse steps, holding each other, finally believing that redemption was real. Freedom was quieter than I'd imagined, more fragile. Marcus got promoted at the construction site. I enrolled in nursing school. We moved into a better apartment together, our first real home. This is the first place that's ever felt like home, Marcus said, standing in our new living room, crying. My sister Rachel finally agreed to meet him. She came to dinner armed with questions and suspicion. How do I know you won't hurt my sister? She asked. You don't, Marcus said honestly. You have to trust that I love Jenna more than my own freedom, that I'd walk away before I'd ever put her at risk. By the end of the night, Rachel was laughing at his stories. When she left, she whispered, I can see he makes you happy. That's enough for now. 6 months later, David Chen, the clerk Marcus had robbed, invited us to dinner. Over the meal, he extended his hand across the table. I forgive you, David said. Completely. And I hope you can forgive yourself. Marcus took his hand, and I watched two men locked in trauma for 9 years finally let each other go. Driving home that night, Marcus turned to me suddenly. "Marry me," he said. "What?" "I know I don't have much to offer except the absolute certainty that I want to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of you." "You are worthy of me," I said through tears. Yes, yes, I'll marry you." We married 3 months later. Small ceremony, simple vows. When Marcus kissed me, it felt like we'd both been given a second chance at life. 1 year later, we stood on our balcony, watching the sunset. "What are you thinking?" Marcus asked. "That a year ago, I was ordering pizza at midnight because I couldn't face being alone. And now I'm here with you, building a life I never thought I'd have. You know what the scariest thing I ever did was," he said, "believing I deserved you." "You do deserve me," I said. "You deserve happiness and a life that doesn't punish you for who you used to be." He smiled. "I know. I finally know." The bravest thing I'd ever done was open the door when he knocked. The smartest thing was letting him stay. And the best thing was choosing him, every single day. Because some people aren't defined by their worst moments. They're defined by what they do after. And Marcus proved that redemption wasn't just possible. It was real. If you made it to the end of this story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. And click the yellow bell to subscribe to the channel and support us. Keep the adventure going by clicking on the suggested video on your screen.